38 foot deep, right on the timber line.
A ditch is just a long pocket, right?
Shaky head.
Anything can be a ditch. Imagine the deepest point of wherever you are. So ditch fishing can be a great wintertime technique. This is a ditch. The center of a big pocket's a ditch. If you got two islands, the center of that, the deepest point is the ditch. Like this is probably your telltale ditch here. This is just a big creek and this is a long pocket off the creek. That's just a ditch. Like this is what typically people would call a ditch, is this right here, where it just moves back, it's a long skinny pocket. But the other side of that, in my mind, see, this is a ditch too. It's just a different concept. So you just got a bowl pocket here, but you got a high point here, kind of a flatter bank here, the deepest trough through here. Also, that's like a classification, that's a type of ditch that fish will use because the bait will get pushed in here and the fish will just keep pushing it back and back and use this too shallow size to feed. When I approach the ditch, most of the ditches have timber in them. I always look at like the 100 feet or 100 yards inside the timber line and outside the timber line is my first go-to spot. Like right here, I was idling. Right here, we had timber, a lot of timber, some suspended fish there, more than likely stripers. But then we got to the end of the timber right here, and there's one school of fish, right here sitting on the trees. You can see them perfectly. So they tend to relate to the edge of the trees. What I compare it to is like when you have timber in a ditch. If you're going to walk through the woods, you're going to try to walk the edge of the woods. You're going to walk a trail going through the woods. Well, the fish like to go around the edge of the timber. So the end of the timber is like a good spot for them to ambush, you know, shad, herring, whatever's moving in and out of that ditch. But the other side of that is that's usually deeper water. That's more your like fish that kind of tough to catch a lot. They're out there on that deep timber line. When they are really, really feeding, they'll move like way to the very back of the ditch, like the very back of the narrow pocket or up shallow. If it's between two islands or whatever, they'll move up to the shallowest point to really like feed. If you ever hit them in that section, they're biting. They're up there because they're biting. And then that could be as shallow as 5 foot. And that's when you use more jerk baits, you know, flukes, stuff like that, because they're up there feeding, or the underspin throwing to them. But ditch fishing is kind of like a 3-step process to me. It's you got your deep timber in the ditch, your deepest point where they may be, then you got that mid roaming depth where you use your front looking to target them, and then you got the back ditch where they're really, really feeding, and you can catch them real, real fast. But they're usually, when they're in that shallowest point of a ditch, they're there for a short amount of time. It could be 5 minutes. And when they're there, but then they move back out to that mid depth or the deepest timber line for most of the day. So I think the most common ditch is something like this, just a long skinny pocket. But you don't want to pigeonhole ditches to just that. You got your skinny pockets, I'm trying to find some islands here that make a ditch. We'll go out here a little bit. Islands can make really good ditches because see, yeah, like right here is the bank and you got an island out here, but it makes a ditch between the bank and the island. So you can have a lot of different ways to target ditches, even though a true pocket is probably the most common ditch, like that right there. But spotted bass love ditches. That's just pretty much, if it's cold, ditch fishing is mostly a cold weather like area you target them. And it's if it's cold, spotted bass are in ditches somewhere on the lake. The way I find them the best is I actually take my boat kind of in and out of gear because a lot of these fish are really, really stuck to the bottom. We're talking spotted bass on these deep, you know, clear reservoirs, and they're really, really tight to the bottom. So they're hard to see on even the down scan because they're so stuck. So I like to actually kind of knock the boat in and out of gear, especially when I get around the edge of timber, and I'll have 2D up a lot of times on one graph, but they'll kind of rise up a little bit and let you see them. And I go pretty slow when I get to that key depth, what I think is usually the end of the timber. It varies. Every lake in the country, that timber line is gonna vary, but it might make a few passes. And when I'm idling, I always try to I use my side scan to stay in the deepest part of the pocket of the ditch, because you can usually see the shallower to your right and shallower to your left, and you might see a little creek channel coming out to know you're in that deepest point, because that's what the fish relate to most commonly, is that deepest point of the ditch. So when I'm fishing deep for these spotted bass, we're in the ditch right now, but any type, deep spotted bass fishing, we got all this great sonar now to be able to find them as active target, you know, down scan, all that. But a lot of times they're hard to catch. They don't like the boat sitting over them. You think 38 foot of water. This is what I always think of. 38 foot's really, really deep, but you think your 20-foot boat, it's only 2 boat lengths. You're literally 2 boat lengths from these fish. So a lot of times they're hard to catch vertically when you're looking at them on this sonar. So what I like to do is see them on the sonar, I drop down and I just kind of let the wind push me away. I don't want to be over the top of them, and you know you dropped on fish, so your bait's down there in them, and you just let the wind drift you away and drift off of them. And a lot of times they're much easier to catch when you're dragging through them, not looking at them, than when you're vertical over them, or even when you got the front-looking sonar at them, because they can hear that. They're pressured nowadays. They know that something's up. So if the farther away you get from them, the easier they are to catch. When you see them go down into the bottom, you know he's on your bait, and a lot of times it takes drifting away from him. Just let a little line out, let the wind push you back, and then those fish will bite. Might be 5 seconds later, might be 10 seconds later, it could be 2 minutes later sometime in the winter. But just kind of give it a good drag, and you know that, just have confidence that you use the sonar to know you dropped on a fish, but you don't have to actually use the sonar to catch that fish. You just know you dropped on him, and now he's still looking at your bait, just gonna take him a minute to bite it.